Su Huang led Cao Cao's main army westward toward the Han River. The terrain there was perilous. The river was wide and deep, and once crossed, any retreat would be left to fate. Wang Ping clearly saw the danger and repeatedly urged Su Huang not to act rashly. He warned that the southern bank was complex and ideal for ambush, and that if the Shu forces lay in wait, the army could be trapped with no way forward or back. Su Huang, confident in his valor and eager for merit, dismissed the advice and accused Wang Ping of timidity. Su Huang forced the army across the Han River and established camp on the southern bank, convinced that his momentum would cow the Shu forces into inaction. News reached Liu Bei's camp. Hanzhong and Zhao Yun immediately requested permission to engage, each offering to lead their own troops. Liu Bei agreed. After scouting the enemy, Hanzhong proposed avoiding a head-on clash and letting Su Huang exhaust his own morale. Zhao Yun concurred, and both held their positions, strengthening defenses without advancing. From morning to late afternoon, Su Huang repeatedly sent challenges, but the Shu camp did not respond. Frustrated, he ordered massed archery to provoke a fight. Hanzhong calmly observed that this showed Su Huang's agitation and predicted a withdrawal. As expected, scouts soon reported signs of Chao's rear units pulling back. At once, the Shu drums thundered. Hanzhong attacked from the left, Zhao Yun from the right, closing like iron jaws and cutting off the retreat. Chao's troops collapsed toward the river, many falling or being trampled, bodies clogging the banks. Su Huang barely fought his way back to camp. Enraged, he blamed Wang Ping for not coming to his aid. Wang Ping replied bluntly that intervening would have destroyed the last escape route, and reminded him that the defeat stemmed from ignoring earlier warnings. Su Huang, furious, drew his sword to kill him. That night, Wang Ping secretly set fires throughout the camp, throwing Chao's army into chaos. Su Huang abandoned the camp and fled. Wang Ping crossed the Han River to Zhao Yun and was brought before Liu Bei. He explained the terrain, mountain paths, and river crossings in detail. Delighted, Liu Bei praised him as worth a map of Hanzhong itself, appointed him assistant general, and tasked him with guiding the army. Su Huang reported to Cao Cao that Wang Ping had defected. Cao Cao flew into a rage over the disgrace at the Han River and personally led forces to the front. Seeing Cao Cao arrive, Zhao Yun withdrew to the western bank, avoiding a disadvantageous defense. Liu Bei and Zhuge Liang came to survey the ground. Zhuge Liang noticed a concealed earthen hill upstream whose echoes carried far. He ordered Zhao Yun to hide 500 men there with drums and horns, to create noise only and never engage. The next days, Chao's troops challenged in vain. At night, as Chao's camp quieted, the drums and horns thundered from the hills. Alarmed, Chao's soldiers rushed out but found nothing. This repeated for 3 nights, exhausting the army. Cao Cao finally ordered a retreat of 30 li. Zhuge Liang remarked that though Cao Cao knew warfare, he could not overcome manipulation of human fear. He then invited Liu Bei to cross the river and camp with the river at his back, baiting the enemy. Cao Cao grew suspicious of Liu Bei's back to the river formation, a known military taboo unless some deeper scheme existed. He sent a challenge to probe intentions. Zhuge Liang replied calmly, agreeing to battle the next day, which only deepened Cao Cao's unease. At dawn, the armies deployed before Wujie Mountain. Cao Cao denounced Liu Bei as a traitor. Liu Bei countered by accusing Cao Cao of usurping imperial authority and persecuting the imperial family. Words clashed, tension peaked. When the exchange of insults ended, the two sides immediately clashed. Liu Bei first sent Lu Feng to face Su Huang. After only a brief engagement, Lu Feng began to fall back, appearing unable to hold his ground. Suddenly he wheeled his horse and fled. Seeing this, Cao Cao was overjoyed. He believed he had finally found a weakness, and at once ordered the entire army to pursue. In his mind, if he could capture Liu Bei in one decisive push, both Sichuan and Hanzhong would fall effortlessly into his hands. The Shu forces indeed retreated in apparent collapse. Camps were abandoned without resistance. Weapons and armor were scattered across the road. War horses left behind, and even grain carts were discarded along the way. When Cao Cao's soldiers saw this, they rushed forward to seize the spoils. Discipline quickly unraveled, and what had been a tightly ordered army soon stretched into a long, chaotic column driven by greed. Yet even as he pressed the pursuit, Cao Cao felt a growing unease. The Shu army seemed to be retreating too quickly and too neatly, as if everything had been arranged in advance. The abandoned equipment looked disorderly, yet it conveniently slowed the advance of the pursuers. As Cao Cao urged his horse forward, the instinct born of countless battles suddenly surged within him. He scanned the battlefield and realized that the Shu retreat was far too smooth. Camps were abandoned too easily, weapons discarded too deliberately. Even the horses seemed intentionally left behind to block the road. On the surface it looked like utter defeat, yet everywhere there were signs of something unnatural. Cao Cao's heart jolted with sudden clarity. This was not a rout, but a trap meant to lure him deeper. Without hesitation, he raised his whip high and ordered the signal to sound for withdrawal. The sharp clang of metal echoed across the field as he shouted sternly, "No one is to take anything further. Whoever dares seize a single item will be executed on the spot." The generals were stunned. Soldiers still clutching captured weapons looked on with reluctance and greed. But seeing Cao Cao's cold, iron resolve, none dared disobey. They hastily dropped what they carried and turned back. Already disordered, the army now pressed into itself, forward and rear colliding, ranks collapsing into confusion. Just as the Cao forces turned back, and before their formation could be restored, horns suddenly blared throughout the valleys. The sound did not come from one direction, but erupted from all sides at once, as if the mountains and rivers themselves were answering the call. Immediately afterward, Shu war drums thundered like rolling thunder across the land. Amid rising dust, Shu banners sprang up one after another, and the battlefield that had seemed empty moments before was instantly transformed into a deadly snare. Liu Bei's central army struck first. He personally took command at the front, and seeing their lord leading the charge, the soldiers' morale surged. They crashed into Chao's center like a bursting flood. Before Chao's troops could react, a roar erupted from the left flank. Hanzhong charged forth at full speed. Though aged, the veteran general rode like the wind, blade flashing as he tore straight into the enemy's side. Almost at the same moment, a fierce shout rang out from the right. Zhao Yun, mounted on his white horse with silver spear in hand, led his troops in a sudden thrust from the rear flank, slicing into the chaos like a keen blade through tangled hemp. Three armies struck at once, front, left, and right, closing in simultaneously. By then, Cao Cao's forces had already lost all formation. The vanguard had not stabilized. The rear was already crushed into disorder, and commands were swallowed by drums and battle cries. Men and horses collided. Weapons fell across the ground. Those who wished to fight could not find an enemy. Those who wished to flee found no path of escape. In an instant, the battlefield became a living hell. Horses screamed in terror. Soldiers were trampled underfoot, and before they could rise, were crushed again by the press from behind. In mere moments, the road was covered with bodies and wounded men. Standing at the rear, Cao Cao saw at a glance that the situation was beyond recovery. His face darkened as he clenched his teeth and ordered a full retreat. His personal guards rushed forward, forcing a path through the chaos to protect him. He fled toward Nanjing, still holding on to a final hope. If he could enter the city and reorganize, perhaps the situation could yet be stabilized. But from afar he saw flames rising high within Nanjing, thick smoke piercing the night sky. Cao Cao's heart sank. Spurring his horse closer, he realized the city had already fallen. Wei Yan and Zhang Fei had somehow split off and taken Nanjing in advance. The fires were no accident, but part of a plan laid long before. At this moment, Nanjing was no longer a refuge for Cao Cao. It was a death trap. Lacking even the courage to approach the gates, Cao Cao forcibly turned his horse and fled instead toward Yangping Pass. Behind him, Liu Bei's army pursued with thunderous shouts. From that moment on, the tide of battle had completely reversed, and victory and defeat were beyond any chance of reversal. Zhuge Liang stood on high ground, calmly watching the dust clouds raised by the retreating Cao army. He knew the true outcome had not yet been sealed. Though defeated, Cao Cao still possessed troops. If given time to recover, unforeseen changes could still arise. Zhuge Liang therefore acted immediately, leaving his enemy no space to recover. He swiftly issued orders to the generals. Zhang Fei and Wei Yan were sent with separate forces to cut off Chao's supply lines. Huang Zhong and Zhao Yun were each ordered to lead troops to set fire to the mountains, sealing off key routes. Once the forests burned, not only were the roads blocked, but firewood and fodder were destroyed, leaving Chao's army nowhere to stand. The consequences soon followed. Su Chu was tasked with escorting the grain convoy. After days of forced marches, he was utterly exhausted. Along the way, he mistakenly drank wine, hoping to revive his spirits, unaware of its growing effect. Even at night, he pressed the convoy forward, attempting to clear the dangerous pass before dawn. As the grain carts entered a narrow mountain defile, horns suddenly sounded on all sides and flames flared up without warning. Zhang Fei led troops charging out from the darkness, his roar shaking the valley as he struck the convoy head-on. Still affected by the wine, Su Chu fought several exchanges, but quickly lost strength and was wounded by a thrust of Zhang Fei's spear. The grain carts were completely seized. When news of the lost supplies reached Cao Cao's army, morale collapsed. Hungry and exhausted, with mountain roads sealed by fire, fear spread through every rank. Unwilling to accept defeat, Cao Cao personally rode out, attempting to reorganize his forces. Yet the Shu army moved with deceptive unpredictability. Drums rose in the east, flames flared in the west. Enemy forces seemed to gather ahead, while shouts suddenly closed in from behind. Cao Cao could never determine where the Shu main force lay, and every decision felt like stepping blindly through fog. At last, the Shu army launched a final assault at Yangping Pass. Under cover of night, all four gates of the pass erupted in flames, the blaze staining the sky red. Drums, shouts, and horns merged into a deafening roar, as if heaven and earth themselves were trembling. Chao's defenders panicked, unable to tell which gate was the main attack, sensing only enemies on all sides. Standing within the pass and watching the surging flames, Cao Cao finally understood. This position could not be held. He dared not hesitate any longer and ordered the pass abandoned. Zhang Fei, Zhao Yun, and Huang Zhong pursued on three fronts, their pressure nearly driving Cao Cao to his death. Had Cao Zhang not arrived in time with reinforcements, fighting desperately to cover the retreat, Cao Cao might well have lost his life in Hanzhong. Summary. This chapter centers on the Han River and Yangping Pass, showcasing how Zhuge Liang used deception to exploit Cao Cao's suspicious nature, turning numerical superiority into defeat. Beyond battlefield tactics, it portrays Cao Cao's inner fear and doubt, and foreshadows later developments over control of Hanzhong. Knowledge points. 1. The sequence around Huangzhong killing Xiahou Yuan at Mount Dingjun is exaggerated and rearranged. Historically, the decisive turning point was Xiahou Yuan's death. Subsequent maneuvers were largely a withdrawal, not repeated strategic outwitting. 2. Zhao Yun's defense at the Han River is based on fact, but its scale is enlarged. Historically, it was a successful tactical defense, not a strategic reversal. 3. Liu Bei's back to the river encampment is likely fictional. Records show Liu Bei favored holding high ground in attrition, not courting such risk. 4. The chicken rib episode and Yang Xiu's death are real, but the timing is debated. Yang Xiu's execution was more likely due to prolonged political conflict tied to Cao Pai and Cao Ji, with Hanzhong serving as background rather than sole cause. 5. Wei Yan shooting Cao Cao in the face and breaking his teeth is almost certainly literary invention, absent from historical records.